They thought they could bury me, but they forgot I knew where all the bodies were buried, and I had the map. That's what I kept telling myself, even as the words echoed in my ears. Liam, after 22 years, we're eliminating your position. My boss, a man named Marcus Thorne, delivered the news with the chilling precision of a surgeon severing a nerve. No emotion, no hesitation, just a flat pronouncement that ended over 2 decades of my life in one breath. Sarah Jenkins from HR sat beside him, her face a mask of professional empathy that did little to hide the sterile finality of the moment. Clean out your desk by the end of the day, Marcus added, almost as an afterthought. My name is Liam O'Connell, 61 years old, and until that brutal Tuesday morning, I was the undisputed bedrock of Olympus Innovations' cybersecurity division in Manchester, England. For nearly a quarter century, I'd been the quiet architect behind every digital fortress, from the early days of clunky modems to the intricate web of cloud-based defense systems. 3 CEOs had cycled through the executive suites, their grand visions and fleeting strategies leaving little more than ripples in their wake, while I remained a constant, unyielding presence. I'd trained every new recruit, recovered every irretrievable file, and worked through countless weekends and holidays, not for accolades or promotions, but because the digital integrity of Olympus was, in a strange way, my magnum opus. So, when Marcus summoned me to his office, the air already thick with an unspoken dread, I knew. The subtle shift in the office's usual hum. The furtive glances from colleagues' news, even bad news, travels at the speed of light in a corporate environment. I understand completely, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, a single nod accompanying the words. I walked out without another sound. No outburst, no plea, just a quiet, almost serene acceptance. Back at my desk, the younger generation of cybersecurity analysts, many of them bright, eager minds I'd personally mentored, quickly averted their eyes as I began to pack. They were good kids, talented in their own right, but they had no comprehension of the intricate, almost organic, labyrinth of our older systems. They couldn't navigate the custom-built firewalls I'd designed or unlock the deep-seated administrative credentials I'd buried layers deep within the network's core, secrets known only to me. I moved methodically, almost ritualistically, packing the fragments of my life at Olympus, a worn photo of my wife, Clara, and our daughter, Isabel, the chipped ceramic mug Isabel had painted for me in primary school, and the tenacious little bonsai tree that had defied all odds, surviving 22 years under the relentless glare of fluorescent lights. Chloe Miller from the marketing department paused by my cubicle, her face etched with genuine concern. Liam, I just heard. This is absurd. You practically built this place from the ground up. I offered a slight shrug, a gesture of weary resignation. Companies change direction, Chloe. But without any warning, after everything you've done, her voice, though hushed, carried a distinct note of indignation, drawing more curious glances. It's fine, really, I said, forcing a quiet reassurance I didn't feel. It wasn't fine. Not by a long shot, but I wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of a scene. As I pushed my box of belongings towards the exit, Marcus stepped out of his office, his gaze fixed on me. No farewell, no handshake, just a cold, supervisory stare, ensuring I actually left. What none of them had ever bothered to truly appreciate, buried under their relentless pursuit of the next big thing, was that over the years, I hadn't just become valuable, I had become indispensable, not because I sought glory, but because I was meticulous. I documented everything. Years ago, during a particularly nasty legal dispute involving insider trading, the legal team had requested secure audit protocols to track unauthorized access. I'd built them, a digital breadcrumb trail leading to every anomaly, and critically, I had off-site copies. I sat in my car for a long moment, my gaze fixed on the imposing 15-story glass and steel edifice of Olympus Innovations, a place where I had spent the majority of my adult life. The security badge, now surrendered, had been renewed 21 times. I started the engine, a slow, deliberate rumble, and drove home. They had no idea. Friday was going to be an education for them. I'd been with Olympus since it was little more than a sprawling 2-floor office in a burgeoning business park. Isabel was just starting kindergarten back then. Now, she was completing her postgraduate studies, a brilliant mind forging her own path. The company had grown, and I, in turn, had grown with it, turning down lucrative offers from rival firms. Loyalty, to me, wasn't just a word, it was a principle. My wife, Clara, used to playfully tease that the servers were my second family. She wasn't entirely wrong. I knew every system, every workaround, every ingenious backdoor solution to problems the executives hadn't even realized existed. The very digital infrastructure I'd painstakingly built had weathered 3 major acquisitions and countless technological innovations, which management enthusiastically embraced, then just as quickly discarded. Marcus Thorne became my direct supervisor 5 years ago, a sharp, ambitious MBA type, barely 40, who referred to our department as IT resources rather than people. He spoke of streamlining efficiency and digital transformation, corporate buzzwords that, in practice, usually translated to do more with less. Initially, I tried to guide him, to help him grasp the profound complexity woven into our systems, the intricate layers of growth and adaptation accumulated over 2 decades. "We need to future-proof," he'd drone in meetings, his gaze invariably sweeping past me as if I were part of the outdated furniture. 6 months ago, he brought in Jasper Croft, a consultant whose expensive bespoke suits and firm, almost bruising handshakes screamed elite. His LinkedIn profile, a masterpiece of self-promotion, prominently displayed a prestigious degree from the London School of Economics. Marcus and Jasper would huddle in hushed conversations in conference rooms, their voices dropping to conspiratorial whispers whenever I approached. 3 months ago, I began to notice subtle, almost imperceptible modifications to my access permissions. Nothing overt, just small, calculated changes to my administrative controls. I could have raised an immediate alarm, but instead I watched and documented. "You seem distracted lately," Clara observed one evening as we sat on our small patio, the scent of her prize-winning roses filling the twilight air. "Is everything all right at work?" I nodded, taking a slow sip of my tea. "Just changes. Nothing I haven't seen before." But these changes felt different. I was being systematically sidelined. Emails concerning critical system upgrades stopped including me. Younger team members, fresh out of university, were assigned to projects that, by all rights, should have been mine. Then I found it. A company-wide memo detailing modernization initiatives that had somehow never landed in my inbox. It outlined a complete restructuring of the cybersecurity division under new leadership. Jasper Croft. My position, the one I had effectively created and nurtured for 22 years, wasn't even on the new organizational chart. That same day, while running a routine, almost archaic security scan, one of those background tasks no one else bothered with anymore, I stumbled upon something else entirely. Unusual patterns within our financial software. Regular, recurring transfers to a vendor I didn't recognize, Zenith Solutions Group. A quick online search revealed it had been registered just last year. Its official business address leading to a small, nondescript mailbox rental service in a distant suburb of Birmingham. The authorized payments had started small, almost insignificant, but were now growing exponentially each month. I said nothing. I simply noted it, copied the records, and continued my silent surveillance. Sometimes the quiet man in the corner sees everything, precisely because everyone assumes he sees nothing at all. The morning after my unexpected dismissal, I sat in my home office, staring at the blank screen of my personal laptop. No alarm clock had jolted me awake. No commute awaited. Just a profound, unsettling silence, heavy with the weight of what had transpired. Clara brought me a mug of steaming coffee, placing it gently beside me without a word. After 24 years of marriage, she knew precisely when I needed my space. "I'm going to the market," she said eventually, her voice soft. "Need anything?" I shook my head. After she left, I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a small, encrypted flash drive, one of several I kept meticulously secured. Company policy strictly prohibited removing data, of course. But years ago, when the legal team had needed a robust audit system for tracking potential insider threats, I'd been explicit about the necessity of off-site backups. They'd signed off on it then, without a second thought, and promptly forgotten. I plugged it in and began reviewing the files. Internal emails, meeting minutes I should never have had access to, financial records that ordinary employees would never see, and there it was. A comprehensive history of payments to Zenith Solutions Group, nearly £2.5 million over 18 months. The approval chain led directly to our CFO, Rupert Sinclair. I dug deeper, cross-referencing dates and figures until the insidious pattern emerged. The payments aligned perfectly with a series of software license renewals for systems we used company-wide. But the amounts were inflated, sometimes by 18%, sometimes by 25%, small enough not to trigger immediate flags, yet cumulatively large enough to siphon off a fortune. I pulled up the business registration for Zenith Solutions Group. The listed owner was Thomas Sinclair. A quick social media search confirmed my chilling suspicion, Rupert's brother. They were systematically siphoning company funds through fabricated markups on legitimate expenses. I leaned back in my chair, a strange, cold resolve settling deep within me. Not anger, not exactly, something far more potent. For 22 years, I had solved problems, repaired fractured systems, protected invaluable data. I had been the unwavering constant, the dependable presence who never caused a ripple, and they had discarded me like obsolete hardware. My phone buzzed with a text message from Alex, a bright junior analyst I'd taken under my wing over the past 3 years. "Liam, so sorry about yesterday. Total BS what they did. Croft's already moving into your old office." I set the phone down without responding. The pieces of the puzzle were now falling into place with grim precision. Marcus and the CFO needed me gone, eliminated before anyone could connect the dots on their elaborate scheme. They likely assumed the evidence would simply vanish with me, that I was just some aging tech guy who didn't understand the intricacies of modern corporate finance. I opened my email client and began drafting a message to the board of directors. Then I stopped, my finger hovering over the send button. Too direct, too easily dismissed as the bitter accusations of a disgruntled, recently fired employee. I needed leverage, precision, a way to expose the fraud that couldn't be ignored or swept under the rug. I deleted the draft and began to formulate a different kind of plan. Tomorrow was Friday, board meeting day. Quarterly financials would be presented. Bonuses would be approved. Perfect timing. I closed my laptop and walked to the living room window, gazing out at the familiar neighborhood where Clara and I had raised Isabel and built our life together. For the first time since yesterday, a slow, knowing smile touched my lips. Friday morning, I sat in my car, parked inconspicuously across the street from Olympus Innovations' imposing headquarters, watching the stream of employees funnel through the revolving doors. In the passenger seat, my laptop sat open, logged into an encrypted email account I'd created years ago for penetration testing, an account that appeared to originate from an internal company domain but was completely untracked in their main directory. At precisely 9:15 a.m., I initiated my first move, an email to Marcus. Subject line, "Financial irregularities, urgent review needed." The body contained a concise summary of my findings regarding the Zenith payments. I included just enough detail to be credible, but deliberately omitted the crucial brother-in-law connection. If Marcus was involved, he'd panic. If he wasn't, he'd investigate. Either way, I would learn something. By 9:45 a.m., my phone vibrated. Marcus's number. I let it go to voicemail. His message, when it came through, was clipped, almost frantic. "Liam, we need to discuss your email immediately. Call me back." I didn't. Instead, I drove to a small, independent coffee shop on the outskirts of Manchester, set up my laptop, and waited. At 10:30 a.m., another email appeared, this one from Sarah Jenkins in HR. Mr. O'Connell, we've received concerning communication from you that potentially violates your separation agreement. Please cease all contact with Olympus employees and remember your confidentiality obligations. Any further communications may result in legal action. So, that was their tactic. Threaten, dismiss, isolate. What they didn't know was that I hadn't signed any separation agreement. At noon, I drove to my bank and accessed my safe deposit box. Inside was another backup, older, but containing critical information I hadn't included on my regular drives. Among the files were the original security protocols I'd designed, including comprehensive documentation of who had access to which systems and when changes were made. According to these meticulously kept records, Rupert Sinclair had personally requested expanded access to the financial approval systems 18 months ago, precisely when the Zenith payments had begun. Back home, I found 3 more missed calls: Marcus, Sarah, and now, unexpectedly, Jasper Croft. I hadn't anticipated him getting involved so quickly. Interesting. I checked my personal email to find a message from Alex, marked urgent. Liam, they're saying you sent some crazy email about financial fraud. Croft called an emergency meeting. Everyone's talking. They're pulling your access to everything, even historical stuff. We can't do our jobs. What's going on? Poor kid. Caught in the crossfire. I sent a brief reply. Don't get involved. Alex, just watch. At 3 p.m., my old home phone, a number I hadn't used for business in years, rang. I picked it up, but remained silent. Liam, it's Rupert Sinclair. His voice was steady, controlled, almost unnervingly calm. We should talk about your concerns. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Is that what you call it? I asked, my voice flat. Look, transition periods are always difficult. If you have questions about company finances, there are proper channels, like the board. I interrupted him. The board doesn't need to be bothered with operational details, do they? Why don't we meet tomorrow? Just you and me? We can clear this up. Sorry, I'm busy tomorrow, I said. Besides, I think the board might actually be very interested in Zenith Solutions Group and your brother. The sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. You're making a serious mistake, Liam, he said finally, his voice hardening. We can make this right. Generous severance, references, whatever you need. Goodbye, Rupert, I said, and hung up. Within 10 minutes, Sarah's email landed in my inbox again. Suddenly, my severance package had doubled, with an attached agreement requiring my complete confidentiality regarding all company matters. They were scrambling now, desperate, but they still thought they were dealing with a simple extortion attempt. They had no idea what was truly coming. Saturday morning brought an unsettling clarity and an undeniable confirmation. I'd spent the night combing through years of archived data, connecting subtle dots I'd previously overlooked. The Zenith scheme wasn't Rupert's first foray into creative accounting. 3 years ago, shortly after he became CFO, another distinct pattern had emerged: exorbitant consulting fees paid to a firm called Regal Business Services. Different name, same insidious game. Inflated invoices for services that were only partially rendered, if at all. I traced the registration for Regal Business Services. This one led to Linda Sinclair, Rupert's wife. The woman was apparently the CEO of a company that had no website, no listed employees, and a virtual office address in Bristol. But the real revelation came when I dug into the deeper email archives. Marcus hadn't just been aware of these arrangements. He'd actively helped facilitate them. In exchange, his department received inexplicably generous budget increases while others faced draconian cuts. He'd been brought in specifically because the previous IT director had started asking too many uncomfortable questions about IT expenditures. Even Jasper Croft was inextricably linked. His consulting firm had been hired through an unusually opaque process that bypassed normal procurement channels. His true role wasn't modernizing it. It was meticulously eliminating the one person who possessed the institutional knowledge to notice the financial irregularities. Me. The scheme was elegantly simple in its design. Create legitimate-seeming vendors, approve massively inflated payments, and then discreetly split the difference. Since some actual services were technically being provided, albeit at obscenely marked-up rates, auditors merely scanning for completely fraudulent charges would inevitably miss it. Over 3 years, they had systematically diverted nearly £5.8 million. I gathered everything into a comprehensive, irrefutable report, meticulously organized spreadsheets illustrating the pattern of increases, business registrations explicitly linking the shell companies to Rupert's immediate family, and incriminating email exchanges proving Marcus's direct knowledge and active participation. Then I did something they would never, in their wildest dreams, have anticipated. I contacted Dr. Alistair Gabriel, a board member I'd worked closely with years ago during a complex, multinational security implementation. He was semi-retired now, a venerable figure in the industry, but still attended quarterly board meetings out of a sense of duty. "Liam O'Connell," he said, his voice a gravelly rumble, answering on the second ring. "Long time no speak. Heard you left Olympus. Bit of a shock, that—" "Not by choice, Alistair," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "Alistair, I need 15 minutes of your time. It's important, extremely important." A beat of silence. This about why Rupert and Marcus have been huddled together looking stressed. Board meeting was tense. Yesterday. Probably that. Always figured you knew where the bodies were buried. "Liam," he chuckled, a dry, knowing sound. "Where can we meet?" An hour later, we sat on a quiet bench in a small, leafy park 3 miles from Olympus headquarters. I handed him a sealed envelope containing a printed summary and an encrypted flash drive. "That's everything," I said, my gaze steady. "Dates, amount, connections. I'm not looking for my job back, Alistair, and I'm certainly not looking for money. I just want the right people to know." Alistair studied me, his wise eyes piercing. "Why come to me?" "Because you actually read audit reports," I replied, a hint of something akin to admiration in my tone. "I've watched you in meetings. Alistair, you ask the hard questions." He nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. "There's an emergency board session Monday morning. Finance committee review. Convenient timing." "Liam," he said, tucking the envelope into his inner jacket pocket. "If this checks out, there will be serious consequences." "I'm counting on it." As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "Someone named Jasper Croft came by the house looking for you. Said it was urgent. I told him you were out." They were getting desperate. Good. That afternoon, 2 job offers landed in my inbox from competing firms, both for positions well above my previous role, both offering substantial signing bonuses. Word, it seemed, had traveled fast about my sudden availability. I ignored them for now. This wasn't about finding another job. It was about finishing what they had so recklessly started. That night, using administrative credentials that should have been revoked but weren't sloppy at transition, Jasper I accessed the company's email server one last time. I scheduled a single message to be delivered to every board member at 8 a.m. Monday morning. Subject line, "Before you approve Q2 bonuses, read this." Attached was my full, irrefutable report. Monday morning dawned clear and bright, a crisp autumn day in Manchester. I sat on my porch, a steaming mug of tea warming my hands, watching the neighborhood slowly awaken. No blaring alarm clock, no frantic commute, just waiting. At precisely 8 a.m., my scheduled email delivered its potent payload to every single board member. By 8:17 a.m., my phone began to buzz with a relentless urgency. Numbers I didn't recognize, undoubtedly board members' assistants scrambling to reach me. I let them all go to voicemail. At 9 a.m., the Emergency Finance Committee meeting would commence. Dr. Alistair Gabriel would be there, my meticulously compiled documentation in hand, observing the panicked reactions as my email was inevitably discovered and discussed. At 9:32 a.m., Alex's text message appeared. Police are here. Sinclair and Marcus being questioned in conference rooms. Croft looking sick. What did you do? I didn't respond. The wheels were turning exactly as I had anticipated. By 10 a.m., Olympus Innovations General Counsel called. Unlike the others, I answered this one. Mr. O'Connell, this is Linda Vance from Legal. We need you to come in immediately to discuss information you've provided to the board. I'm available by phone, I replied, my voice calm, unwavering. This really requires an in-person discussion. No, it doesn't, I interrupted, my tone firm. Everything I know is in that report. Everything I have is already backed up in multiple secure locations. If anything happens to me or my family, additional copies go to the Serious Fraud Office, the National Crime Agency, and 3 major news outlets. A heavy silence stretched across the line. Mr. O'Connell, she finally said, her voice carefully measured. The board is taking this extremely seriously. They've already placed several executives on administrative leave pending investigation. They would appreciate your cooperation. I've cooperated fully by providing complete documentation, I said. My part is done. After she hung up, I drove to a small, nondescript diner 20 miles outside Manchester. No sense in being easily found today. Over lunch, news began breaking on local business sites. Olympus Innovations executives under investigation for financial irregularities. No names yet, but that would come. At 2 p.m., Alistair called. It's a bloodbath, Liam, he said without preamble, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. Rupert confessed once we confronted him with your evidence, trying to cut a deal, blaming Marcus for pressuring him. Marcus is denying everything, of course, and Croft claims he was just a consultant who had no knowledge of financial matters. The board isn't buying any of it. We've suspended all 3 pending further investigation. The money, forensic accountants are coming in Monday. Early estimates suggest at least £6 million diverted over 3 years, maybe more. I nodded to myself. I'd been close. The board wants to talk to you, Alistair continued, about coming back. Not just to your old position. They're creating a brand new chief security officer role, reporting directly to the board. I'd anticipated this possibility, but still found myself surprised. I'll think about it, I said. That evening, I told Clara everything. She listened without interrupting, then simply asked, What do you want to do? Good question. The revenge part was complete. The people who'd so casually pushed me out were themselves being pushed out, likely facing criminal charges. Justice had been served, cold and precise. But returning to Olympus meant walking back into the very place that had discarded me after 22 years of loyal service. Could I do that? Did I want to? I need time to decide, I said finally. Later that night, I opened my laptop one last time and posted a single message to my otherwise dormant LinkedIn profile. Never burn bridges. Just let them collapse under the weight of their own greed. Within minutes, former colleagues began reaching out. Word was spreading. The quiet systems guy had brought down 3 executives without raising his voice. By Monday, everyone would know exactly who they'd underestimated. Monday morning, I walked into Olympus Innovations headquarters wearing a suit I hadn't needed in years, tailored and sharp. The security guard, a young man I vaguely remembered from training, did a double take, then quickly printed me a visitor badge. Welcome back, Mr. O'Connell, he said, with newfound, almost reverent respect. The elevator ride to the executive floor was quiet, almost reverential. I'd never had reason to visit this elevated realm before. Now I was expected in the boardroom. 10 board members sat around a polished mahogany table, their faces a mixture of solemnity and curiosity. Alistair nodded slightly as I entered, a subtle gesture of welcome. The interim CEO, previously the coup, looked distinctly uncomfortable. "Mr. O'Connell," she began, her voice a little strained, "thank you for coming. The situation you've brought to light is unprecedented." I remained silent, allowing the weight of the moment to settle. "The full extent of the fraud appears even worse than initially reported," she continued, glancing at a folder in front of her. "The forensic team has identified nearly £7 million in diverted funds. Criminal charges are actively being prepared." Still, I waited. Alistair cleared his throat. "Liam, the board has unanimously voted to create a new executive position, Chief Information Security Officer. Full executive privileges, reporting structure directly to the board. We'd like to offer you the role." I set my own folder on the gleaming table. "Inside, you'll find my conditions," I said, my voice calm and firm. "Non-negotiable." The interim CEO opened it, scanning quickly. Her eyebrows rose. "Full audit authority across all departments, independent budget, veto power on financial technology decisions." I nodded once. "This is unusual," she said. "So was embezzling £7 million, I replied, a hint of steel in my voice. "That happened because no one was watching. Now someone will be—" The room fell silent. "You have until noon," I said, rising from my chair. "I have other offers." As I turned to leave, Alistair's voice stopped me. "Did you plan this all along, Liam?" I paused at the door, my hand on the polished wood. "I didn't plan to be fired after 22 years, I said, looking back at them, a faint, knowing smile on my lips. "Everything after that was just me doing what I've always done, identifying system vulnerabilities and implementing appropriate security measures." At 11:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. They'd called. They'd accepted every condition. 6 months later, I sat in my new corner office, reviewing security protocols for the upcoming quarter. The panoramic view overlooked the Manchester skyline, a daily, tangible reminder of how much had irrevocably changed. Rupert Sinclair had pleaded guilty to multiple fraud charges in exchange for cooperation, receiving a significantly reduced sentence, but still a long one. Marcus was fighting the charges, stubbornly insisting he was unaware of the scheme despite the overwhelming evidence. Jasper Croft had initially fled to Brazil, but thanks to international cooperation, was being extradited. The money had been recovered, most of it, anyway enough that the company avoided serious financial damage. My former team now reported directly to me, though I'd promoted Alex to run day-to-day operations. The kid had immense potential. He just needed someone to see it. A soft knock at my door drew my attention. Clara stood there, smiling, holding 2 lunch bags. "Ready for lunch?" she asked. I nodded, grabbing my jacket. As we walked through the cybersecurity department, conversations quieted briefly, not from fear, but from a quiet, palpable respect. These people knew what had happened. They knew I could have utterly destroyed the company. Instead, I'd saved it. In the elevator, Clara squeezed my hand. "Happy?" I considered the question. The initial blaze of anger that had driven me those first few days after being fired had long since faded. What remained wasn't exactly happiness. No, it was something deeper, more profound. Satisfaction. Completion. "I'm good," I said. Outside, the warm October sun bathed our faces as we walked towards a nearby restaurant. My phone buzzed with a message from Alistair. "Board approved your security budget increase. Unanimous vote." I smiled slightly. No arguments. No questions. Just trust. Clara noticed my expression. "What is it?" "Nothing," I said, sliding the phone back into my pocket. "Just thinking about bridges. Some collapse under the weight of their own greed. Others, once repaired, become stronger than they ever were before. I built this one right this time."